I want to get to last night's game because I actually sat down and for the first time, I very rarely watched like pregame coverage. It was a slow Monday night at the house, sitting there with my daughter, my 13-year-old, and they started talking about Phillip Rivers, who's been an unbelievable story. And after his game where he had him in a position to win in Seattle, I think everybody was surprised, but he didn't do much. Like it was a lot of handing off. I think they ran the ball 80% of the time. And it was like, what do you expect from him now?
I think he had more passing yards in the end of the first quarter this week than he had all last week. Right?
Yeah. So like they were talking with him. So we're kind of getting into it. My daughter was getting into his story. And of course they were like, Dad, why aren't you playing? Like, why can't you go out there and play? I was trying to explain to him. I'm like, Dad wasn't anywhere near as good as Phillip Rivers. And Dad's a little bit older than Phillip Rivers still. And they were like, no, you look younger than he does. I'm like, that felt pretty good. I felt pretty good. My favorite part of watching Phillip Rivers, and I know he came up short, and I know they won, and he threw a pick six at the end of the game. I've said on here a bunch, it's easier to play quarterback now than it ever has been before. When they aired the broadcast, I loved how they had it on television because you could hear Phillip Rivers working at the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And so you could hear him. They did a lot of double cadence stuff where he comes up and he goes, wide 80, set hut. And you see what the defense is doing. Yeah. And then you get into a play that works against that defense. I mean, it reminded me of Peyton Manning, how he used to be a coach at the line of scrimmage. Right. And he was orchestrating and directing traffic and getting good plays. He knew exactly where to get rid of the football. And that is somebody who cannot move in the pocket. He is not going to hurt you with his legs. And he still threw for, 275. He had a few touchdown passes. Like, he looked really, really good. I think it's a lesson to a lot of younger quarterbacks who rely on their legs, who rely on their athleticism, who rely on their arm talent to save them. You don't have to have all that. You can beat teams still with your mind and knowing where to go with the football quickly. I thought it was an expert class, a master class on quarterback play for somebody who clearly is limited in what he can do, but can still execute because of his mind.
Yeah, I took two things away from that. A, just the amount you must get out of like a full, hard week of practice, right? Because he came in on, a Wednesday? And even knowing the offense as much as he did, you could tell that they were a little condensed, right? They did some stuff, but they really didn't open it up like yesterday. What he got out of the last week was incredible. Like just the leaps and bounds they've come in the last week. What I would also say is the receiver in me, that's very difficult to go from I don't want to knock Daniel Jones. I don't know how much Daniel Jones is doing that. I don't know how much the backup is doing that, when Daniel Jones went out. But even for a receiver to be able to kind of go from not having to hear all that is a lot to think about out there. So shout out to the receivers who did a really nice job of making the adjustments. There wasn't too many times they looked real flummoxed, where they looked like they were out of sync and all that. He underthrew a couple of balls, but more times than not, they didn't seem like they were, crossing lines, or they seemed like they were on the right. He threw a lot of anticipation plays, like in breakers, where I was like, wow, he looked like he's been throwing with these guys for 6 months.
No doubt. He played great. 2 touchdowns, 277. He did have the interception late, but he was outplayed by Brock Purdy. And I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know this, but Kyle Shanahan was telling the broadcasters, like in their production meetings before, that they were prepared to sign Phillip Rivers. The 49ers were, back when Brock Purdy was a 7th-round pick and was forced into action. And I wonder if Brock Purdy was aware of that. I'm sure he's been told or been aware of that. And so I thought it was a pretty cool story that Brock Purdy was kind of able to vindicate himself from an organization that probably doubted a young rookie thrust into the lineup, and they were looking for opportunities. Kyle Shanahan even said that he told Phillip Rivers to be ready throughout the season, and there was a chance he could have started in the Super Bowl had something happened to Brock Purdy. And, of course, it never happened. Brock Purdy did play pretty good in that Super Bowl loss. Yeah. But I thought that kind of connection was pretty wild, and that was 4 years ago. Yeah. That they were still having that conversation. I thought it was pretty unbelievable. Really cool story, and Brock Purdy had almost a perfect game. 5 touchdowns, did have the 1 interception, but he has played great since coming back from that toe injury.
And he's done it all without Brandon Ayuk, which is pretty crazy, right?
Yes, he has.